This isn't a blurry photo somebody posted online. This is a case where an entire national air force packed up and stayed for 4 months. By the time they left, the operation had produced a report running to hundreds of pages and 16 hours of film. To this day, that film has never been publicly released. The town doctor had a stack of medical records for dozens of patients with injuries she said she couldn't explain. And the official conclusion? There's nothing here. In the next few minutes, I'll show you what was actually in that file, and why 20 years later, and why the man who ran the whole operation broke his silence and said the opposite of what he'd signed. Stay to the end, because what happened to him is the part that still doesn't sit right. Colares, a fishing town built on stilts over the water where the Amazon meets the Atlantic. No real hospital, a few hundred families who lived by the tide. Starting in the late summer of that year, people began reporting the same thing. At night, would come in low over the river. Not planes, they hovered, they were silent. And then, witnesses said, they would fire down a beam, a shaft of light, that would lock onto a person. The locals had a name for it, before any scientist arrived. They called it the chupa chupa, the sucker. And some of them had marks. Here's where most scary channels stop. They'd play the creepy music and move on. We don't. Because there are two things about Colares that put it in a different category. The first is a doctor. The second is the Air Force. The doctor was Wellaide Carvalho de Oliveira. She ran the town health unit. And she described a pattern, not random burns, the same thing over and over. Marker 1, the burns. It started as an intense reddening of the skin. Then the hair over that area would fall out. Then the skin would darken, almost blacken. She compared it to a radiation injury, but there was no radiation source on a fishing island in 1977. Marker 2, the punctures. This is the detail that's throat. There were 2 small puncture marks side by side, like 2 needle holes. She said she treated around 40 people. And I want to be precise, this is her testimony, told to the American journalist Bob Pratt in 1993, that 2 of them died. A single frightened witness is a story. 40 patients with the same clinical signature, logged by the same physician, is a pattern. And a pattern is exactly the kind of thing that makes a government stop laughing and start paying attention. And that's exactly what happened next, because the mayor made a phone call. The mayor, José Ildone Favacho Soeiro, formally asked the Brazilian Air Force for help. And the Air Force said yes. They opened a classified operation with a code name that tells you exactly Operação Prato, Operation Saucer. This wasn't 2 guys with a flashlight. There was a command structure, a brigadier as strategic chief, a colonel as tactical chief, a sergeant keeping the written record. And running it on the ground, the operational commander, Captain Uyrangê Bolívar Soares Nogueira de Hollanda, Lima. Marker 3, the deployment. They brought cameras. They brought the equipment to measure and photograph. The documented record shows 2 concentrated phases of fieldwork. The first from October 20th to November 11th, 1977, ran on in 1978. And they saw things. The team logged sighting after sighting. They photographed lights. And here's a detail most people never hear. The commander later said his team cataloged 9 distinct forms of object. Discs, one shaped like an American football with what looked like small windows. A cone and cylinder shape, maybe 3 meters across. Not one vague blur, a taxonomy. Marker 4, the photographs. This is the visual core of the case. It's a light in a dark sky, low-resolution 1977 film. A skeptic will tell you it could be a plane, a planet, a flare. And they're not wrong to ask. But remember the context. This photo isn't the evidence itself. That also contains the doctor's injuries, the equipment logs, and the testimony of the officers who took it. And the Air Force sat on all of it. The first pieces didn't come out until 2000, reports only, no photographs. The bulk wasn't released until 2009, still not public. 40+ years later. You and I still can't see what the camera team shot. What did the official report say? That's where this case gets strange. Let's be honest, the way this channel always is. Here are the ways to explain Colares, v. Charms, from the ground up. Theory: mass hysteria. An isolated community, no electricity. Real fear spreading person to person. It explains the spread. Theory 2: misidentification. Aircraft, helicopters on approach to Belém, meteor activity over the delta. Genuinely explains a lot of lights in the sky. But here's what those two theories struggle with: the injuries. Mass hysteria doesn't leave 2 puncture wounds on 40 people's chests. Misidentifying Venus doesn't burn your skin and make your hair fall out. You can argue the marks had ordinary medical causes, and some skeptics do, but the clustered, repeated pattern the doctor described is the part that refuses to close cleanly. Theory 3, the official one. The Air Force's final report, signed under Captain Hollanda, no evidence of extraterrestrial activity. Case closed. Which would be the end of it. Except it wasn't the end. Because 20 years later, the captain spoke again. In 1997, 2 decades after he signed that report, Captain Hollanda gave an interview to the researchers Ademar Gevaerd and Marco Petit.
Eu já penso diferente. Eu acho que já deve ser dito alguma coisa. Eu acho que esse assunto deve ser espalhado, deve ser explicado. Ah, é o que eu te disse, vou fazer 60 anos. Daqui a pouco eu estou com 60, daqui a pouco eu chego a 70. Se não, morreu o coronel e acabou.
And he did not repeat the official line. He described what he and his men had actually witnessed in Colares. Sightings, he said, were real, close, and unlike anything conventional.
Você acredita em disco voador? Acredito. Está registrando. Então agora você está encarregado desse caso. Aí me deu a pasta com o início da operação para que eu tomasse conta do assunto e ficasse encarregado do caso.
De onde veio a ideia da operação chamar-se Prato? De quem veio essa ideia?
Essa ideia, eu dei esse nome porque o Brasil é o único no mundo, única nação no mundo que chama disco voador de disco voador. O francês chama de soucoupe volante. Soucoupe é pires.
The man who had written "nothing here" now said, in effect, that wasn't the whole truth.
Relatos de pessoas que tinham sido atingidas por uma luz e que julgavam que ele estivesse sugando o sangue das pessoas. Porque realmente, depois a gente foi verificar, tinham algumas, principalmente mulheres, no seio esquerdo, uma marca, como se fosse 2 furos de agulha, tá? E em torno, uma mancha castanha, como se fosse uma queimadura de iodo. Tá? As pessoas diziam que tinham sido sugadas, o sangue tinha sido sugado, uma parte, uma parcela pequena do sangue tinha sido retirada. Então, passaram a apelidar de chupa-chupa por causa desse fato. Porque uma luz vinha e incidia sobre a pessoa, e normalmente nas mulheres do seio esquerdo, homens no braço, na perna.
Qual era a proporção? Quantas mulheres para quantos homens em média?
Mais ou menos 8 para 10, em 10, 8 mulheres.
Verdade.
Em 10 casos, 8 mulheres.
E vocês documentaram os efeitos físicos, as marcas, as pessoas, foi tudo documentado?
Foi visto, foi analisado, foi visto por médico. Em novembro, outubro, novembro, foi logo no início da operação.
77. Né?
77, Apareceu uma luz, tá? veio de norte, no sentido norte-sul, na nossa direção, a média altura, tá? E realmente quando chegou, ela se deteve e fez um círculo em torno, depois foi embora. Aí eu levei uma gozada da turma, do sargento, e eu falei, e agora, cara? Eu disse, não sei, ainda não vi. Tá?
A luz era de que jeito?
Você, sabe essa solda de metal?
Maçarico?
Não, solda elétrica.
3 months after that interview, Captain Hollanda was found dead in his home. The ruling was suicide. His family has never accepted it. And whatever you believe about that, and I'm not going to tell you what to believe, you're left with a hard, documented fact. The one man with the authority to explain Colares changed his story near the end of his life, and then he was gone. The file is real. The doctor's patients were real. The operation happened. That much no one disputes. So here's the verdict, the honest one. Was Colares aliens? Unproven. Was it explainable? And misidentification account for a lot of the lights. But the injuries, the file, those don't flatline cleanly. That's why it's still open. Here's my question for you. 40 patients, 2 puncture marks each. If that's not what the witnesses said it was, what leaves that mark? Drop your theory below. If you want the case before Net decides what it means for you, new file every week. This is Dead Signal. The camera saw what you didn't.